This is City Manager Bill Osborne, and welcome to another edition of On the Agenda. Today I'll be talking with two men who've been involved over the last several months in what I think will be a wonderful new asset to Douglasville, Douglas County. And I'm talking about the establishment of local campuses of Georgia Highlands College and the University of West Georgia. We've had representatives from the Board of Regents, which, as you may know, is the governing body of the University System of Georgia. Representatives from Georgia Highlands College, University of West Georgia, working with the officials of the city government and the City Development Authority to see how we could bring about actually what will be the fulfillment of a desire and a vision of a lot of people, namely local campuses of a unit of the University System of Georgia. And on this episode of On the Agenda, we want to talk about how all of this has come together. That in fact, Georgia Highlands College already is holding campuses here in Douglas County. The Board of Education, Superintendent Don Rumillard, were kind enough to make available some modular units on the campus of Chapel Hill High School. And so those classes are being held there. And I know all of us from the university system and locally who've been involved in trying to put this together certainly appreciate what Superintendent Rumillard and the school board have done in making this possible. Now, we've got two guests today. My first guest is a gentleman, a local attorney, well-known local attorney, whose clients include the Douglas County Board of Commissioners and the Douglas County Board of Education. But he also has some major statewide responsibilities because in 2007, Governor Perdue appointed him to the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia. And so at this time, I want to welcome my first guest, Mr. Ken Menard. Welcome to On the Agenda.
Good to be here with you today, Bill.
Well, Ken, I know that as a member of the Board of Regents that you're part of a body that has major responsibility for making decisions relative to the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and all the other components of the university system. And the past year, with my being involved in working to try to bring Georgia Highlands and the campus of University of West Georgia to Douglasville, I've come to appreciate more the complexity of what goes into having the university system to expand into an area. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's just start by, on a personal note, is what does it mean to you to have a unit of the University System of Georgia here in Douglasville, Douglas County?
Well, I think, Bill, it's very gratifying to have Georgia Highlands College come into Douglas County. These are something that communities around the state yearn for because of the economic impact, the community impact, the cultural enhancement of the community. Right. And it says a lot about our community that the governments here were able to cooperate without the aid of the mayor, the city council, yourself, your staff, the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, the various entities that make up Douglas County. This would not be possible because the Board of Regents knows that surviving in this environment long-term requires a community that's dedicated to the long-term achievement of higher education. And this community has shown by its demonstrated needs and abilities and what it brought to the table, as we'll discuss, I assume, later on in this conversation, that it's willing to meet the needs of the future and create a more educated Georgia.
Right. And so what you were talking about, the university system, as they looked at this community, that motivated them to want to come here because of what they saw in the community?
No doubt about it. You know, it's rare that you get a public college in your doorstep. That if you look historically in the state of Georgia, it's very rare that a new college campus is created. I will tell you, by way of example, what I have heard over the years is that Cartersville, many years ago in the 60s, was being considered as a site for what became Kennesaw State University. Mm-hmm. And I think the forefathers there, for whatever reason, did not go out and get the deal done. And when it wasn't done, I think they've regretted it ever since. Now, they do have a campus of Georgia Highlands that they've got in 2005 in Cartersville, but that is some nearly 40-year odyssey of being without it. And I think this signifies for this community a great deal in the future of economic development and impact. And also our citizens need it, and this access will provide a more educated Douglas County, more educated Douglasville, and a more educated Georgia.
Right. You know, I remember a year and a half ago when Dr. Randy Pierce, the president of of Georgia Highlands had a meeting that was hosted by the Development Authority of Douglas County. He talked about Georgia Highlands planning to come to Douglasville, and while I thought that'd be a great idea, I don't think any of us with the city were motivated to go out to take the lead in this, and we were not involved for a period of time, and then we heard they might go to Villa Rica, and I know the mayor called me in and we talked, and we thought, well, we don't need this campus in Villa Rica. It should be in the heart of Douglas County here in Douglasville. And so we began to be involved. Now, I have to tell you, when I was told about that we would be partnering, I really didn't know what partnering meant. I found out it was a lot more than said, we'd be delighted to have you in our community. They were looking for a commitment from us. Tell us why the Board of Regents requires a commitment and what you ask of us.
Well, the success around the state of Georgia of a highly long-term commitment starts with what is the community forefathers and the people that are in the government's commitment early to set the framework in place so that you'll have an organizational structure that will surround the campus. What I think the Board of Regents has learned over a period of time is that the survivability of college campuses depends upon a strong network with the local community, and and we really are competing against other communities. I mean, Georgia Highlands can go a lot of places. The University System of Georgia can go a lot of places. It's here because of the commitment that was demonstrated by this community.
Right. And I know that one of the things that we talked about needing to provide was a way of making it possible for there to be a multi-year lease on the temporary location. And then, of course, we were looking at providing at least 50 acres for a permanent site. And we ended up, of course, working with several groups locally and then yourself on saying that, okay, that permanent site, at least at this point, we would identify it being on Bright Star Road. And we were to give and are in the process of providing an option to the Board of Regents for that 50 acres. So I think that, I know you've said that you felt like that was what was needed to provide that local commitment that would say, yes, they do want to be sure that the college comes here. Well, Ken, let's talk a little bit about what the temporary location is going to be that the Board of Regents has said was be acceptable to them.
Well, right now, I think as you mentioned earlier, Bill, we're on the Chapel Hill campus through a partnership with the Board of Education on short-term modular units out there to get the ball rolling. Our plans are hopefully by January of next year to have the what I call temporary site. All the temporary sites projected to be at least a 10-year lease at the Cub food sites. One, that provides economic redevelopment to that area.
Sure does.
Number two, it's within a stone throw of where the land's been set aside off Bright Star by the City of Douglasville as a potential campus. And three, it provides great access because, as you know, with the future plans, assuming the economy ever revives itself again, right down the street, Greta has just built one of the most expensive parking ride lots. That acquisition there and construction is one of the greatest expenditures by Greta on a parking ride lot. Two, the infrastructure is planned in the tip long-term along Bright Star and that corridor will provide great access. And from a regional perspective, because access universities or access institutions are intended to provide great access to a broad range of folks, we just think the location in Douglasville and its proximity to the I-20 and the corridor of growth in West Georgia is outstanding. And so that's really what the vision is short-term. The short term is to move from the modular units at Chapel Hills into the Cub Food Complex, expand out the Cub Food Complex, and then hopefully in the next years to come, but then hopefully before me and you leave and pass on, that we'll have a campus there, because I think the dedication to have a campus really signifies this, that we're here on the long haul for this college campus.
Right. And I know the Board of Regents on October the 14th put their stamp of approval on what you're talking about, which we've all been yearning for and looking forward to as we tried to work through all these complexities with all the different groups we've had involved. Now, insofar as the growth of the campus over, say, the next decade, and Dr. Pierce, I'll be talking with him later, but from your perspective, what are you looking at in terms of growth, in terms of numbers?
Bill, that's a great question, and I don't want to speak out of turn for Randy. Randy's a great college president. Both he and I are Marines by trade, and so I have a great deal of respect for Randy Pierce. But I think this is sort of the offshoot of where Georgia Highlands' roots came from. As you know, it was Floyd Junior College in Rome. It's grown into 6 different sites, including the Douglasville site. As part of the Board of Regents' plan for expanding education in Georgia, we've gone in and drawn concentric circles around underserved populations that don't have access to public college education. What Georgia Highlands does for us is it allows our students, both traditional and non-traditional, to if they've got a high school diploma or GED, to go into an access institution without an SAT score or ACT score. If they prevail by doing the workload and passing the curriculum over a 2-year period of time, they're guaranteed by intergovernmental agreement with the University of West Georgia access under certain criteria.
Right.
So what it really does is give somebody that maybe has not performed the way they wanted to in school or never thought about college the opportunity to actually attend college, be successful, and make it to a 4-year institution. As far as my, as a Board of Regents member, what I love about this opportunity out here, besides what it provides our community, our students, the family of Douglas County and Douglasville, is it provides a great opportunity to grow a campus that leaves a long legacy. And what I mean by that is this: when they built the Cartersville campus, enrollment went up 50% immediately. As you know, in Cartersville, which is sort of our model long term, they got about 50 acres on the Cartersville site. Their enrollment jumped 50%. They built 100,000 square feet of educational facilities, technology labs, biology labs, educational labs, and a library that created great cultural and civic awareness and access, because most of these college campuses, especially 2-year, are really open campuses. We expect to have a lot of green space out there off of Bright Star one day, and I just think, from a cultural improvement into we've got great cultural activities in our community, and this will enhance those. As you feel like when you go on any college campus,
Right.
I think it's going to bring a lot to the table. The economic impact is probably measurable. I don't know what the measurements are, but I would think that from the standpoint of economic development, we could compete with anybody.
Right. Well, that's great. I appreciate that information. I always give my guests an opportunity for a final comment. So any closing words that you have?
Bill, first of all, I want to thank you for being here today and for your making the public aware of this great opportunity in our community. I probably should start with thanking Don Remlard, the superintendent of the school system, for making this opportunity a vision of his. The school district had sometime a concern about access to our students because of our diverse student population, whether all of them, the students, were being afforded opportunity to college education. As you know, the projections for higher education are growth of about 100,000, and we are continuing to grow at the university system level across the board. We're really getting access to schools that people had access to before. Is getting harder and harder because so many folks are applying. What we see this 2-year access institution is a great opportunity for non-traditional learners, for people who have to work, people that can't commute to another institution, and people who want a second chance at higher education. That vision was formulated by the superintendent, Don Remlard, some time ago. He contacted me probably, and I'm going back, Bill, you may remember it, but it's been probably, I'm going to say 3 years ago or so, 2 or 3 years ago, and said, can we work on creating some relationships with public higher education in Douglas County and West Georgia specifically? Well, as a member of the Board of Regents, I took that to the folks at the Board of Regents, and of course, it was an ongoing study plan of theirs throughout the state to draw these concentric circles to provide access to underserved areas. And so that it just was a natural marriage that was going to occur, and I think the timing couldn't have been better. So I want to thank the school board, especially Don Remlard, for his vision on this, the Board of Regents, obviously, and the Chancellor of the University System of Georgia, whose staff has supported this throughout the whole study, the whole planning, and the whole negotiations, and the vision to see it carried out. I want to thank the Georgia Highlands college staff, especially Dr. Randy Pierce, who's going to be a guest of yours later at Georgia Highlands College. And I also want to thank Dr. Sethna at University of West Georgia, because the success of two-year access institutions is to provide something at the end of the 2 years. And University of West Georgia teaming up with the two-year institution has made that possible. So I want to thank Dr. Sethna. Lastly, I want to thank all the governments in Douglas County, especially I want to thank the mayor, the city council, yourself, the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, everybody that had a role in this. One thing I found in this process is we can come together as a community when we need to. There was no bickering. It was simply, we need to have it in this community, whatever it takes. It doesn't matter what the line is. It just needs to be in this community. And I'm sort of glad. I think long term that this provides our people great opportunities to go back and get more education, to extend their education, or to be provided access to higher ed.
Right. Well, Regent Bernard, I appreciate you being with me today on the agenda, and I'm sure we all look forward to Georgia Highlands, University of West Georgia, having very successful campuses here in the city of Douglasville and Douglas County. To our viewers, stay tuned because I'll be back and I'll be talking with the president of Georgia Highlands College.
At some point, you'll have to replace the child-proof cap with a conversation. Prescription drug abuse can kill. Talk to your teen.
My second guest on this edition of On the Agenda is the president of Georgia Highlands College, Dr. Randy Pierce. Over the last year and a half, I've gotten well acquainted with Dr. Pierce. In fact, he and I have had a lot of twists and turns to reach to the point where we are today on being ready to move forward with a campus in Douglasville, Douglas County of Georgia Highlands College. Dr. Pierce, welcome to On the Agenda.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you having me here.
Glad to have you. Tell me why you felt that it would be good for Georgia Highlands to come to Douglasville, Douglas County.
Back in 2000, and actually the first one was done in 2003 and then again in 2007, the university system commissioned a study to try and project out to 2020 just how many students we would have in the university system. And their projection was that by 2020, the system would have an additional 100,000 students attending the various 35 institutions in the university system. They also projected that 70 to 75% of those students would be attending in the greater metropolitan Atlanta area. So the issue or the question was, how do we serve an additional 70,000 plus students between now and 2018, 2020 in the greater metropolitan Atlanta area? And so they pretty much called on the two-year institutions, the state colleges in this region to sort of head up or spearhead that thrust, because institutions like Georgia State and Georgia Tech, the research universities, are larger and much slower to respond. And the two-year institutions and the state colleges are much more nimble, I guess. I use the analogy of the battleship and the PT boat or the aircraft carrier. The Georgia States and the Georgia Techs are the aircraft carriers that take a mile or two to turn, whereas the smaller institutions are much more able to respond more quickly to the needs in the various communities. So the system basically asked Georgia Highlands College to be the lead institution in North and Northwest Georgia. So Douglasville became part of, and Douglas County obviously became part of that thrust. And so we were asked to work with University of West Georgia to put together a program and a teaching site out here in this area.
Great. Well, you know, I remember when I went to a meeting and heard you speak, I thought, hey, this would be great for our community. I didn't think at that time, though, about the City of Douglasville becoming a partner in this. But over the next few months, events which I talked about with Regent Bernard earlier in this program, those events transpired so that the city government and the City Development Authority stepped forward because we felt like it was a thing that needed to be done, and we're delighted that we did, and believe this is going to be great for the city, the city, the county, as well as Georgia Highlands. Right. Give us just a very brief history lesson concerning Georgia Highlands College.
Okay, Georgia Highlands College is one of 16 two-year and state colleges that are part of the 35-unit university system. We actually were founded as Floyd College in Rome in 1970s, back in the 60s, early 70s. The university system in the state was basically trying to establish at least a junior college within driving distance of every resident of the state. And so Floyd County became one of those areas that received the go-ahead to start an institution in 1970. And actually, Floyd College and the founding president, Dr. McCorkle, actually valued reaching out to other communities. They actually, probably in the first 20 years, established a site in Cartersville and then another one in Ackworth. So expanding, creating teaching sites in surrounding communities has sort of been part of the DNA of Floyd College. I came there in 2001, and we already had on the drawing board the Cartersville campus, which opened in 2005, Bartow County, and so we opened that campus and also established a teaching site in Marietta, and I think that's what led the system to decide that we were the institution to continue that thrust in this part of Metro Atlanta.
Right, and I know that I guess with the Ackworth campus and the Cartersville campus, your tie-in, I believe, is with Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State tie-in is with is the Paulding campus.
Okay.
In Dallas, Georgia. We opened that, of course, last fall as well, and was working on that one at the same time we were working to establish the teaching site here in Douglasville and in Douglas County. So we feel like this is certainly an important part of what we do, of our mission, and we feel like, obviously, because this part of Metro Atlanta, the west side of Atlanta, is underserved by two-year university system institutions, that this is going to be a good partnership between us and the city and the Development Authority. Right.
Well, I know when Mayor Thompson and I talked about looking at working with Georgia Highlands, the Board of Regents, and then our City Council became involved. Councilman Terry Miller, who was the first chairman of our Education and Training Committee. Now John Shillroth is the chairman of the Education and Training Committee, as well as the Community and Economic Development Committee, and I think that's a pretty good marriage to have also from the standpoint that in addition to opening up a lot of new vistas from an education standpoint, we perceive that having the college campus here is going to be great from an economic development standpoint.
Absolutely.
And you know, you mentioned our City Development Authority, which has played a key role in this, and one reason, as we both have had to work with, is that Georgia law puts certain restraints on the university system and on local governments, in particular as it relates to multi-year contracts and agreements, while the legal entity, the authority, is used by the state government as well as local governments as a way of being able to kind of bridge in time We have locally our Convention and Conference Center Authority, and of course the City Development Authority and the Development Authority of Douglas County are able to do that. And that was key with what we were working on with you, because we needed some way to cover a 10-year lease with the owner of the shopping center on Stewart Parkway, where the first campus, other than the temporary units at Chapel Hill High School, but we needed some way to cover that 10-year span, and that could not be done just by the city or by the college or the university system, but by using the City Development Authority. That gave us a connecting link to do this. Of course, we found out as we worked on this, there were a number of interlocking pieces here. If you would, Dr. Pierce, now just give our viewers a telephone number, email address, and we'll have it on the screen so that our viewers will be able to jot that down.
Well, the website for the college is www.highlands.edu. And they can go to the website and go into the website, of course, and then can find telephone numbers if they want to talk to an individual, or they can actually apply online as well without actually going onto a campus or talking to an individual. We, of course, as you indicated earlier, we are teaching courses at Chapel Hill High School in 4 modular units there. We do have a director of campus operations that's already housed there, Ken Reeves, and you can reach him at kreeves@highlands.edu as well if you have any particular questions about the Douglasville site and of course opening. And as soon as we know the exact date that this particular center will be open in terms of the new Cub Foods site, we will post that on our website so that information is available. But you can go online and get telephone numbers, or certainly email Ken Reeves at kreeves@highlands.edu, and he'll be able to put you in touch with the people that you need to in terms of admissions or registration, or even talking about how course credit might transfer into the institution. Well,
I see we're almost out of time, but there's more that Dr. Pierce and I need to talk about to acquaint you with the establishment in Douglasville of these new campuses of the University System of Georgia. So Dr. Pierce, I appreciate you being with me today. Look forward to having you back on the next edition of On the Agenda. To you, our viewers, I hope you will join us as we continue our discussion on the establishment of Georgia Highlands in West Georgia here in Douglasville. These are exciting times, I think, for our educational institutions in Douglasville. And we'll see you next time. This is Bill Osborne signing off from On the Agenda. Have a great day.